Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. I'm thrilled to bring you this podcast from Australia with Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott. It's been a minute since the Mimi and Greg show version of this podcast, but we're back and with an exclusive. I sat down in person with these two comic book powerhouses to talk about their brand new collaboration for DC Comics, Cheetah and Cheshire Rob the Justice League. You won't want to miss this behind-the-scenes look at how this wild heist story came to life. If you don't already know, Greg Rucka is a New York Times bestselling author of hundreds of comics and nearly 24 novels. He is also the writer for his critically acclaimed and award-winning film, The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron. Nicola Scott is an acclaimed Australian comic book artist known for her dynamic cinematic style and powerful storytelling. She's worked on standout titles including Wonder Woman, Black Magic, and Birds of Prey. I've been enjoying these conversations and hope you have too. If you have, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice and share it with others. If you would like to support with a donation to help keep this podcast going and support the work I do, you can become a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now on with the show. Hello. We are in Australia. I am with
We are.
the one and onlys here. We got Nicola and Greg, and this is very exciting.
Yes, broadcasting from an undisclosed location.
Undisclosed location.
Somewhere in New South Wales.
A lair or a
lair.
lair?
Yeah,
A lair.
a lair.
Oh, I like that term. Thank you very much. I'll take that.
From an Australian lair. Somewhere
lair.
in New South Wales. Whose lair could it be?
The last time we were together, I think, was in Portland, but
That's right.
this is kind of amazing.
I know. All sort of coming together
Yes.
on the other side of the planet.
Eating.
Yeah, I
Serendipitously.
just showed up.
Hanging.
I mean, literally.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I mean, wherever there's Mimi, there's Greg.
Well,
Where there's Greg, there's Mimi. I mean,
think-
the
I
Mimi
think
and Greg
that's-
show here.
I think that's more generous. I think it was more likely, oh, you're going to be talking to Nicola, are you? Not without me.
Yeah, I'm coming over.
What?
I beg your pardon.
This has been absolutely fabulous. I'm so excited to be here with both of you. Oscar and I have been on vacation, frequenting and going around to some really lovely places. And when he asked me, oh, what are you excited about? I was like, honestly, the places are great, but I'm so excited to be with people I love and want to hang out with. And this is the perfect way to be the finale to our vacation.
The Shire
that's
was
so
good,
nice.
but this is better.
Way better. I mean, this is so much fun. We've been hanging out. We've been eating some fabulous food.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
And Nicola's been giving some good recommendations. So if you didn't know this about her, but she knows food really well.
I eat
Okay.
food really well.
What did you make for brunch?
I made chachika. Baked eggs. Delicious.
They were terrific.
So delicious.
They were
Some
so
chorizo.
good.
Yes, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
This is like
I
this
was
is the
like,
way.
I'm not going to eat anything, and I had 2 plates full. I was like, well, I guess that's me a liar yet again. So
Good.
Yes, no, there's nothing better, especially being that we are oceans apart normally, than like sitting together and sharing a meal. There's just something really special about that dynamic. But I think this has been absolutely incredible. So first of all, thank you for feeding us.
So nice to have everybody here.
I know.
It's such a treat.
Like in the neighborhood and just stops by ever, right?
just to drop
We're in
in.
the middle of nowhere.
Just a
So
drop
it
in.
is really, really lovely.
Yes, this is fantastic. And we've got a beautiful, lovely day, a beautiful Australian day, and it is autumn here.
It is, yeah.
It's a little
Though
confusing.
You can hardly tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's confusing for me because, we're like, what season? And it's opposite and all over the place. But how have you been?
Good.
Yeah?
Busy. Yeah.
Busy.
After a couple of slow years, just kind of having had some burnout for a little while. Somewhere in the last 5 months, I've kind of felt myself kicking back into gear and feeling like myself again. So I'm extra good because I feel normal, and it's been a while since I've had that feeling. So I'm feeling very relieved that it's there, that sort of energy and focus and speed is back again, because I haven't felt it for a while.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
Oh, amazing. Well, I'm really excited to jump in and talk about some of the work that you're doing and being in the inspiring area that I'm at, seeing all this artwork is super exciting. And Mr. Rucka, I haven't gotten to talk to you in a little bit. The
been a
Mimi and
couple
Greg
months.
show's been on a little bit of a break. So
been a
it is
couple
nice
months.
to not only be back podcasting, but in person. I'm like, wow. I'm a little
no,
like,
Jack-
he's like personal space, Mimi.
He's
Like, I'm
real.
just super
He's
excited
real.
right now because, like we're
it's-
sharing space and that's always a treat.
Yeah, it's legit.
Well, Portland was pretty awesome as well, like because we also shared meals and
Yes.
you fed me as well. Notice I just show up and people feed me because Greg fed me
That's
as well.
the right way to live life.
Yeah, I mean, and also the danger in how you phrase that is that you show up expecting to be fed. That's not what happened, right? It's not like you
Feed
show
more,
up going,
please.
yes, exactly.
Please.
No.
Feed me.
This was, it's hospitality. It's love.
It's love.
It's
yes.
love.
Yes,
Feeding
absolutely.
people is
Lots
love.
of love. I agree. It is the Chan family love language, as we always say,
Yeah.
is like
Yeah,
food.
it's food.
So it's 100%. I wanted to talk about, just because I've got you both here and I got to see and witness and even watch some of the magic happen. I think we should just jump in. I know people are going, what's going on
hell are
now?
you
Not
talking
black magic, but that will be happening. But there has been some collaboration.
Yeah, do we want to talk about that elephant in the room first?
Yeah, I can show you some of that too.
Ooh.
Yeah, because you're on. You didn't finish 17, right? You're about
I'm
halfway
like
through.
2 pages away from finishing 17.
Yeah, so 17 is almost done, and we
And I
won't be
love the
releasing it
issue.
for a really long time because we're not going to come back with Black Magic. The plan is not to return to Black Magic until we are returning to end it.
Yeah.
So, in the interim, however, there was an opportunity to do a project at DC together that on initial blush, I don't think anybody would have been, well, that's obviously a Rucka and Scott gig. But then sort of as we got into it, it was like, oh my God, yes, this is so much fun. And since Nicola actually came up with the title, I think Nicola should share the title.
Oh gosh. Okay.
This has been, we're recording this in advance of DC announcing it.
Yeah.
He said, looking at the camera. But Mimi has agreed to an embargo.
I am trustworthy. I've built up a
In
little
the
So-
family. Yeah.
So this is, if we time it right, DC will announce it, and then Mimi will drop this and have
Yeah.
like the first
That's
interview about it.
exclusive.
Exactly. So it's called.
It's called, hilariously, it's called Cheshire and Cheetah and Cheshire Rub the Justice League. And it does exactly what it says on the tin.
That is exactly it.
On the nose.
It is. It is.
It's 100%.
It is the most honest title
Yeah.
we arguably have ever worked on together, and that includes Wonder Woman Year One. You
Yeah.
know, which was pretty declarative. But this one, Cheetah and Cheshire rob the Justice League. That's what this series
And it took
is
us a while
about.
to come up with the name, even though we knew that was exactly what the story
Yeah.
was.
We went through all sorts of titles before we were like, or we could just say what it is.
Yeah.
I love it. And listeners are going, tell me more. First of all, yes, it's on the nose. Like you're saying exactly what's happening, but what else can you tell us about this? Because as obvious as the title sounds, it still doesn't really explain anything. What do they rob? Like they're robbing the Justice League? How could that even be possible? Listeners' minds are exploding right now, I think.
There is in continuity a device on the Watchtower.
Okay.
That is the sort of device that only can exist in a comic book continuity. And that is an exceptionally short-sighted solution to a problem that the heroes have come up with. And and that's me framing it generously. And Cheetah decides that, you know what, if we were to have this device, we could pretty much write our own ticket.
Yeah.
But we got to do this quickly and cleverly because it's the frickin' Justice League. And and despite what the title may sound like, this is not about the Justice League being a bunch of chumps, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no triumph if we make the Justice League look dumb in this. That's not fair to the Justice League. That's not fair to the DC Universe, and it's not fair to our characters. So it is literally Cheetah and Cheshire having to put together a crew to pull off the most difficult robbery or heist in the history of the DC Universe. They need to get onto the Watchtower satellite, with like 20 heroes at any given time.
Minimum.
Yeah, just
Plus staff.
Yeah, plus staff being able to teleport onto the station at any given time, and remove this object, and then of course, stealing it's only the first part. You got to get away with it.
Right.
So, and this came about because I got a call from an editor at DC, Rob Lemon, and he basically said, "Here's this thing, and I want to do a story about them trying to steal it." And I said, "You can't do that. It's not going to work because the problem is you Batman and Guy Gardner can hate each other's guts, but at the end of the day, they're all heroes. They're all going to be like, well, we got to save that life. We got to stop this catastrophe. They're never going to stab each other in the back." And the problem with the villains is that that's all they do, right? Like the Legion of Doom is one of the most problematic concepts because everybody in it is trying to screw everybody else in it at any given time. So my response was like, you can't do it because you can't get them to work together. And Rob, in the way that editors who have figured me out said, yeah, you're right. That's a real problem. How would you solve it? And I said, go fuck yourself. And then called him back like 3 days later and said, okay, so the way you do it.
How you do it.
So the way you do it is you do Ocean's 11. You do Ocean's 8.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. This is a DCU equivalent of an Ocean's story. This is with Cheetah, filling in the position of Debbie or Danny, and Cheshire is, her Rusty or Lou, depending on which film you want to reference to. And then we've got some other members of the crew, some of whom are more recognizable than others, one of whom is a brand new character. And we're having an insane amount of fun with it. And that's the goal. That's the other thing, is that the goal of this is you can't say Ocean's 11, but grim.
Yeah.
It's not. No, it's Ocean's 11.
Yes.
It's serious. There's serious stuff at stakes, but it's meant to be fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
The plot is what is robbing the Watchtower, but the story is really about the dynamics between these characters.
Right.
As they scheme this heist together and pull the crew and how they go about it. That's it's really the dynamics between all of these characters and giving them these sort of after hours lives that we don't generally get to see, because most of the time, a villain's story is told through the perspective of the hero.
Right.
And here it's like the heroes are somewhere in the distance. They're a real thing that they have to consider at all times, but that's not what the book's about.
Yeah. And that's not where our focus is. And one of the things that we really wanted to do, and we talked about this, is not only do you get to see this is what Cheshire is doing when she is not showing up to make Arsenal's life difficult or whatnot, and wanting to take, in particular, a lot of these characters who honestly are viewed mostly as props in service to other heroes. Like Cheshire is not, in my opinion, a character who has been, it's not like she's been maltreated, but she hasn't really been given any due, because her purpose primarily narratively is to show up and mess with Roy. In the same way that Leanne's purpose, more often than not, is to be a complication here. It's like, oh, here's the woman you're in love with. Here's the daughter you have. Yeah. Right? But we don't actually go, this is Leanne having cornflakes. Right? This is what Leanne thinks about. Yeah. This is what Cheshire thinks about.
Well, Cheetah is an A-list character, indisputably. Cheshire is a B-list character. Leanne is a C-list character. And it's like taking these sort of lesser known characters and giving them the dynamic of each other and this sort of space to sort of have a life and for us to understand them and for the readers to understand them in a sort of more sophisticated and really fun way.
Yeah, I loved when you all shared this with me. One, because it was top secret at the time. So really cool.
It's actually technically still top secret.
I feel so cool.
You're the only person out of the room who knows.
But also because as a big fan of both of your works, but also of some of the characters and whatnot, I was like, wow, I've never heard of this character. I don't know who this is. So it just feels so fresh.
Yeah.
So while there's this hint of the background noise of, oh yeah, those recognizable, links to these more well-known characters, it just feels so fresh. But at the same time, there's the dynamic of, you're robbing the Justice League. How fun is that? And I think you were sharing the other night at dinner, like, oh, I'm in. This appeals to me.
As soon as Greg sort of, because, we were sort of both saying, we've got to do something sort of creatively satisfying, but we've got to make some money. So let's I contacted Greg to say, look, I need to do something.
I need to get some finances banked so I can
so we can
work
do
on
some more
Black Magic. Yeah.
And Greg was like, well, you'd never guess. They just called me.
Yeah.
And
ironically enough, your timing could not be better. How do you feel about drawing a lot of Cheetah and Cheshire? And
I don't even know that Cheshire was like
I think it was
solid
Cheetah
thing. It was
first.
definitely
because
Cheetah.
I knew I wanted to do something with Cheetah. Because I have an ulterior motive in this too, which is, as Nick said, Cheetah's definitely A-list. She doesn't get treated like A-list.
Yeah.
She doesn't get the respect of, a Race or a Lex. And okay, fair. All right, fine. But then we want to... One of the things I'm very invested in, and this came out during the 2016 Rebirth Wonder Woman stuff, and in particular in year one, and was something that, and I've said this elsewhere, like on my first turn on Wonder Woman in the aughts, I didn't get to Cheetah until almost I was done with the run. Because I didn't really have I didn't have a good grip on her. And then there's only one Cheetah issue in that initial Wonder Woman run, and I actually quite like it because I sort of was like, oh my God, I get her now. So when we did, in particular, year one, being able to go back and make it sort of a Barbara Ann year one too, or as well, I should say, and sort of falling more and more in love with this character who is so smart and is so driven, and also I think crucially, like the difference between who she is at the start and who she is now in the DC universe is unrepentant. Right? Like we've done one of the stories that we did for like the annual was the story about Diana going to Circe and being like, cure her. And ultimately Circe being able to do it and Barbara Ann just refusing it, outright refusing it, being like, no, I want what I am. And I find that tension about Cheetah incredibly compelling and incredibly fascinating, and it makes me want to, like, I really want to give her due. So I knew pretty much from the get-go, after Rob was like, here, let me put my evil seed in your mind and then creep off and let it do its work. I was like, okay, well, it's got to be somebody really smart, but it also can't be, I can't be a Luthor story. It's got to be somebody that I was like, oh, I want to make it Cheetah. I want to show how smart Cheetah is.
Yeah.
And one of the fun things about the ocean stuff, right, is that you look and you're like, wow, Danny and Rusty are like super clever, right? Deb and Lou are super smart.
2 steps ahead. Almost.
Right. It's exactly that. So if we can get that sense, if we can convey that sense, that together Barbara Ann and Jade are just like, and that there's a friendship there, right? That there's a history there that we have not been privy to, right? We have never seen them like this before, but we are now presenting to the DCU. Oh no, this is what they're doing when they're not doing their jobs, is they get together and they have coffee.
A diner at 4:30 in the morning.
Exactly. And there is, in fact, a diner scene at 4:30 in the morning.
Plot away.
And they talk to each other as peers. And there is trust. And that's the other thing, right? Is that everybody in the crew ostensibly comes together with a level of trust. So I was saying I have an ulterior motive. Excuse me, I'm talking a lot. I will shut up shortly. But my ulterior motive, so if we can do this right, I want to elevate, here's this D list and C list and B list. I want everybody to grade up. And I want a Cheetah book.
Okay.
I want to do a book like Willow is killing it with Poison Ivy right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's room for a Cheetah book. I think
100%.
there's room for a book where you follow Cheetah as she's moving through the DC universe doing her thing. And doing her thing outside of her very complicated relationship with Diana.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And for you, because you have familiarity, obviously, but you really gravitated because it felt fresh and new for you. And you're because I mean, I've seen some of the pages, haha, everyone, and it's mind blowing. I mean, it's amazing, just stunning. But every time you, I don't know, is it pen or pencil to the page? What is it? Whatever you put to the page, it's like you're just
blood
creating.
blood.
A
little bit.
magic.
That's right.
But yeah, like how do you, Greg brings you this. Hey, by the way, that we haven't had this conversation. You all both obviously work super well together, and there is magic there. But like, I know that when you choose a project, you're at the point where you've earned the right to say, no, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to do this. But this was really appealing because you were able to be really creative here.
Well, it's sort of the initial appeal is being able to do something with Greg again, and sort of do something unexpected within the DCU, because I feel like I've done a lot of characters there. I've been at the company sort of pretty steadily for 20 years, and there's not a lot of ground that I haven't covered. Like, I've done a villains book before.
Yes.
But this one has a different kind of shine to it.
Yes.
And it's coming at me at a different point in my career where I knew I didn't want to do something glossy and sparkly and happy. I needed something a little sharper and a little darker without being like a noir, moody, piece, because I've done that plenty too. And as soon as Greg said a villain's book, I was like, yep, keep talking. And
go on.
Talked about this thing on the Watchtower, and I was like, and we're going to rob it. And I was like, well, okay, here are all the complications, right? And he was like, yes, I know. Okay. And, this is, and sort of told me about his conversation with Rob. And he was like, but this is how we do it, with the sort of Ocean's 11 comparison. And I was like, oh, yes. That sounds sort of tonally exactly the kind of space that I want to occupy for a while.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a sort of conversation just between the two of us. Who do we want in this book?
Yeah.
Because you get to choose.
Here's the whole villain universe.
You get to choose to an extent.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you end up doing is you end up it's sort of like going to a sports team draft.
Right.
Right. You literally are like, here's my list, and you give them to the editor, and the editor is like, okay, well, the Superman group says you can't use this person.
Oh, I see.
And over in Batman, these people are off the table. And Titans is using this, so this is oversaturation. And
Okay.
But it's also, before we even get to that point, we're also very much in agreement. Well, we don't want this kind of character. We don't want this kind of character. So it's sort of annihilating a lot of like the A-listers, because this has to be a team that works together.
And it's got to be a team that flies below the radar.
Right. Right. When you were naming all the characters, I was like, am I just like not in the know? And I
No.
Oscar and I are like,
We're
who
literally
is that?
pulling people out
Oscar's
of
like,
obscurity.
Who is that?
Yeah.
Oscar and I were at dinner with you guys, and he's like, do you know that? I'm like, no, I don't know that
No.
person. But I actually don't know that much.
We were literally being like, I mean, so there is, and if you turned the camera, you would see the DC Comics Encyclopedia.
Yeah. We both had it out.
Like we were
Greg in
going
his place, me in my
through,
place.
and going through and being like, and then like you find a character, you're like, okay, maybe this would work. And then you want to find, like, okay, what's the last thing they were in?
Because you need the skills,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, this must be so much fun to just build the team.
Exactly.
Well,
what
and then what you
it
do
happens
is
in the story is we need to build a crew.
And then you send an email to an editor being like, so what's going on with Hazard? And you get an email back being like,
Who's Hazard?
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, good start.
Yeah.
What was the last
That's
appearance?
amazing.
And then you get something being like 1986. Right? It's like,
The
great,
reference
we're
I had
in.
was from the 80s. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
But isn't that great?
That's-
Because then now you get to be
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the creator of
It's
like, well, now they
fantastic.
will wear this
Exactly.
and they will look like this.
And we can do this and we can tweak this. And the other thing that's happening is that the moment in the DC universe is allowing us to tune up a power set here and there because there has been this thing where the powers went sort of crazy and all over the place. So we're getting to run with that a little bit.
Okay.
And then going back to it's fun, and we want this to be fun. We want it to be a book. That this should not be a book that people read and are like, oh Jesus Christ, I need a drink. After
Yeah.
It should be like, oh, this was. Okay, where's the next one? I want the next one.
Yes.
But that said, there is a definite darkness to motivation for at least one of the characters. Like I mean, here's a giveaway. Opening scene is us addressing a cheetah problem that people have pretty conveniently forgotten, but has been baked into the character.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the things that we want to do with this series is like deal with this complication. Cheetah, in theory, in continuity, has had from at least the Perez get-go,
Yeah.
and her trying to reconcile and address it. And it's pretty grim. I mean, it's actually there's a reason we don't talk about some of Cheetah's problems.
Yeah. They're dark.
That's
They're
because
very dark.
some of Cheetah's problems are definitely rated R and
Yes.
in many cases NC-17.
Yes.
They are not prime time problems. And so, but we want to be fair, and that's the other thing. We're trying to be fair to everybody we are using. So, having to navigate that and make it's not, it's a motivation here. So we've got to talk about it, but you also can't, paint it in neon letters and feel like, she is a cannibal, guys.
Yeah.
It's like she has to eat human flesh. This is one of the terms of her enslavement, right? Kind of sucks if you're Barbara Ann.
Right. Right,
So.
right. Yeah. I think you've always done a really fantastic job, Greg, of that, where you take a character that we think we know and then you dig deeper and deeper. And then you really do this great reveal. And
very
you always
nice.
do such a fantastic job of allowing us as readers and people who are taking in these comics to feel a familiarity with the character and then be like, oh, okay. And they're complex. There's more to it. And this must have been, like I said, so much fun to build the roster. Like you said, you got the encyclopedia out, but you are also having this ability to there's some really lovely comic geeks out there that will know these characters.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
I am
absolutely.
not, I barely know the A-listers, right? Because I just don't have that knowledge. But you kind of get to paint them, literally, in a light where you're like, well, we are going to give them their due, but also if somebody who hasn't been seen since the 80s, you really get to put a spin on it. And visually, there's something there that's so new. So they're like new characters, but not. Which is a
that's
gift.
a sort of big part of the sort of enjoyment of the collaboration process is that, together we were sort of fan casting this crew as well as sort of like, I really want to draw this character.
Yeah.
Can we find a way to make it work? And Greg sort of being like, yeah, I'm sure we can try and find a way. And then, fingers crossed that they're available.
Right.
And
And then it turns out, yes.
then, it's like, oh, okay, excellent. And then it's just sort of like, well, here's a character that barely anyone remembers, hasn't had a big story, but here's someone who sort of maybe once a decade pops up in a miniseries or something. And so there have been versions that people might be sort of kind of familiar with this character, but they're somewhere in there is something a little more interesting and complex. And we'd like to sort of mine that. That's why, you know, I love working with Greg so much, is because he won't let any of his characters just be props. You know, it's like, what is the complication with this person? And sometimes, yeah, you do have to dig, because that's not how their stories are being told, because they're, you know, an extra in someone else's story.
Yeah.
And this way, you know, Greg is sort of more inclined to sort of say, okay, here's the complication. That's interesting, rather than that's annoying. Let's bring it to the surface and deal with it. And that makes it a lot more fun for me, because it means that I get to draw something kind of interesting. I get to draw sort of, you know, I'm always wanting to work with character-driven writers. And so, you know, Greg's a prime example of just sort of like, here's something shitty about this character that we should investigate, while not making the entire story about that. It might be a motivation that's worth sort of properly exploring. And then I get to sort of draw that. I get to act it all out with all of the characters, and we sort of...
Well, that's part of the treat, is that the acting, you know, Nick's acting on the page is so good.
It's phenomenal.
That I can ask for things that in some other instances I would be hesitant to ask for.
You used the word instinct the other night with her, and
you know, there's a great example of that is, okay, so we you know, Cheetah and Cheshire have this relationship. Okay, well, Cheetah and Cheshire have this relationship, and we're going to invest it. We're going to say this is honest. This is a friendship that clearly stretches back years. They've known each other. They know each other very well. That means, by extension, that Cheetah has been a part of Leanne's life, right? Which means that Leanne and Cheetah have a relationship. Okay, well, now I'm very interested in that, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm writing a scene where it turns out Cheetah calls Leanne Slick. That's what she calls her all the time. Slick. How you doing, Slick? How you been, Slick? What's up, Slick?
And Cheetah gets to be this sort of cool auntie kind of character.
And then Jade's like, why do you call her Slick? Right? And Cheetah has a reason. And it's like, oh yeah, I have a reason. I know why she does that. It will come out in the story. Right?
And now you guys keep referencing Ocean's 11. So are there 11?
No.
Or it's just just
too many.
Too many.
I leave cast numbers like that for the likes of Mark Waid. He's got a Justice League Unlimited. He can be unlimited. We have, it comes out to 6.
So
it's
the
really
crew.
6 if we count the cat.
Yeah. Which we do.
Of course there's a cat.
Of course there is. Are you kidding? Well, Cheetah's a cat.
True.
Cheshire is a bit of a cat.
7. It's 7, I think. I think we've got 7.
Yeah. Like there was a point in time where we were sort of had a number in the title. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, but we don't know what the number is.
You know, by the end of it,
we don't quite know exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, well, and also it's like, here are the people that we overtly recruit, but, you know, spoiler, Leanne's part of this story, right? They didn't actually go and recruit her. It's just because
she's just
this
there.
week,
she's there,
you know, it's this month Leanne's living with mom. You know, she's not living with dad. So, and there's literally a moment where she's like, well, I'm involved in this. And Jade's response is, no, you're not. I don't want to have to explain to your dad why you're going to help us rob the Justice League. You know?
Amazing. And I know listeners are always fascinated with research and things like that. And you mentioned yesterday, I've really been watching the film a lot. And so now it's like super fresh in your mind. And one of the things that resonated just while we were speaking was...
It's funny because there's a bit of business in issue 3. And the amount of research I had to do for this 4-page sequence on this character... it was like 3 days worth of reading, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Just to fully understand.
Can't believe I did this to myself. So.
the choices you make. But basically, one of the things that I remember, because I haven't seen it in a while, but it is one that where if it's on TV, you kind of want to watch it. You want to keep it on, right?
It's really entertaining.
And it is, of course, about the heist, but like what you said, the relationship, like who doesn't love just the banter between the main characters and the one that's, like the Matt Damon character, they just like to like mess with, and like that's the fun part.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is Oscar and I were talking last night after having the meal, and then, Greg slips you some pages, and we feel like the whole thing going down, but like seeing you two work is like watching the heist like happen. Like you guys working, it feels like you literally are acting out what the team is like, because
sometimes we do. We're sort of like improvising the scenes.
There have been a lot of scenes in this so far where I've gone to Nick and I've said, so I was thinking this, and we need to accomplish this, and what do you want to see here? How would you do it? And it's like, we could do this, and that's a great solution. Let's do that.
Yeah, this feels like the right kind of motivation for this character, or the right kind of attitude for this character. So we sort of, before Greg even starts writing, we're talking quite a lot about these characters and about these sort of dynamics and situations. And like only a couple of times when it's been convenient and Greg's sort of writing a scene, we'll like improv the scene between us and sort of find the right sort of on-ramp or off-ramp or whatever it might be.
There's been at least a scene in each issue at this point that's been scripted that quite literally I've gone to Nick with going, I was thinking this. And Nick says, oh no, what about this? And I'm like, that's better. That's the better version. And there's a scene in the first issue that absolutely the better version of the scene is what Nick proposed. There's a scene in the second issue, better version. So
but it only comes about because we're improving together.
It comes about because of collaboration.
Yeah.
And the best, the unequivocally best comics experiences I have are the ones where the collaboration is full on and borderless. And there have been collaborations where it's like, okay, and then at a certain point I need you to shut up, Greg, I'm going to go do my thing. And there have been times when I've worked with an artist and wanted to collaborate, and then they're like, I'm going to go and do my thing regardless of what you wrote. And it's like, okay, well then that's not collaborative either. That and collaboration has it's a range. It's not a binary. I have, and I've said this I think to you before, the older I get and the more I work in the industry, the more I have come to a place where I just don't want to be working on projects where I am not in complete collaboration. I can't draw. I can't do it, right? So by necessity, the work has to be collaborative for me. And if that collaboration cannot be honest and fearless, then it's not worth my time anymore. I mean, and that's that I suppose is getting a little close to old man shouts at cloud, but it's with Nick, with Lark, with Henderson and Troutman on the Forged, with Leo on the Old Guard. When I've worked with Justin Greenwood, for instance, on Stumptown, those, it's got to be a complete. Here's what I bring, here's what you bring, and let's swap the cards and see what hand we build. And that's not to say there isn't tension. That's not to say there aren't arguments. Lark and I go at each other all the time. No, but and that's because that's the nature of that collaboration, right?
Exactly.
He challenges in a different way.
Yes.
But it's never. It's the thing that makes every one of these collaborations work is that it's never about ego. It's always about the work.
Yes.
It's always about what are we doing in the story? What's the best thing for the story? And Nick's sense of fun which I think people who have seen you and talked to you and interview at shows and in on podcasts and so on, like Nicola's sense of fun is always there. It's like effervescently always present, but we haven't done many books where we've gotten to do that. There have been little bits where it sneaks in, like a panel of Diana down on all fours sticking out her tongue at a salamander or whatnot. Little moments like that. But this is one of those instances where we get to go, oh, no, the whole fucking thing. The whole fucking thing.
I was going to say that.
Just fun.
Yeah.
That's what
Go
I noticed.
fun.
Because I was going to say, well, I don't see you acting out black magic so much in the way that you're talking about this book, right? It's a very different tone.
Yeah.
But
It's a lot
feels
grimmer.
super different.
The collaboration is the same, but
Right.
the goals are very different. The stories are very different, and therefore the nature of the conversations between us are very different. And then, when Greg sits down to do his bit and I sit down to do my bit, the internal space becomes very different, because you've got to sort of find the right, not only, what is this scene about, but what's the subtext of this scene? What's the subtext of these sort of dynamics between these characters? What else are we saying here, or what should we be saying here? Or whatever, and all that kind of stuff is the funnest thing about a sort of really good collaboration, because I know there's layers there. We've talked about it. But a script, like a play, it's sort of like it's a infrastructure, and that sort of knowing that we've had these conversations means that once I'm sort of doing my bit, I get to sort of. I remember when we talked about this scene and the sort of tone of it, and that there is sort of a warmth there, or whatever it might be, that there are layers to what this scene is showing itself about, and sort of finding the ways to sort of put it on the page. It's trying to sort of find the nuance that you can get with a bunch of actors and some music rising and falling and lighting cues and all the stuff that a play or a TV show or a film can have, but just sort of all you've got really is the visual language and the written language, but sky's the limit. So how do we sort of achieve that sort of sense of scope?
It occurs to me, I'm not sure. I say it occurs to me. The things that make, especially in film, right? The Ocean's movies work so well. The reason that we go to Redford and Newman, we talk about Pitt and Clooney, right? You talk about that chemistry, right? Which is this magical thing, and you can manipulate conditions, right? Here's a lighting cue. Here's a music cue. Here's the way we're going to shoot it. We can make you, as the audience, feel something. But it's very hard to convince chemistry that isn't there, right? Like, there can be a great performance, but we know when there's chemistry. Like, we can feel it. That chemistry may not always be positive. It may turn out that these performers hate each other, but there's definitely chemistry.
But on camera, it looks great.
Yeah. But I actually think that chemistry, that question of chemistry manifests on the page as well. I have collaborated with incredibly talented artists. There's just no chemistry there whatsoever. I've collaborated with other writers, very gifted writers, no chemistry whatsoever. I do think that when the collaborations are right, it shows. So, and I think one of the joys about Cheetah and Cheshire Rob the Justice League is that it's kind of, I think it is kind of for us, it's the right moment, the right story, and what we needed, and it feels like a perfect storm in that sense of the chemistry. And honestly, the rest of the team, involved in the production, everybody seems to have the same energy and so on. I think it carries through. So
Yeah, even though it's a work for hire, it doesn't feel like it's a job that's
yeah,
like,
it ain't being phoned in.
this-
I've got to do this
Yeah.
because I've got a mortgage to pay or whatever it might be. It's a great opportunity to work on this big deal character or, whatever gamut of reasons why any of us take any of the work that we are offered. This is one of those ones where it's like, we're really getting to build it from the ground up. So it feels very much ours. Despite the fact that it was initiated by an editor coming to Greg and saying, here's an idea, like the very basics of an idea. And it being like, yeah, that's a bullshit idea, actually.
Yeah, you know what?
Here's
Greg Rucka would probably love to think about this.
yeah. And
Well, it seems
something sort of-
impossible. It's
yeah.
literally like, here's an impossible thing.
Yeah.
When something is
Go.
sort of said to you and you're just sort of, that it's a bad idea, but you can't stop thinking about it. That's when you know you're kind of onto something.
Yeah, and it's not, incidentally, it's not the idea that they would rob them that's the bad idea. It's like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. The villains would do that. But that's a totally different book, and that's a miniseries that has that becomes a big slugfest between Gorilla Grodd hitting Black Adam, hitting, and you go down.
Yeah.
All that is how they're
That's
trying
slugfest,
to...
yeah.
And that's not fun. I mean, there's a market for it, absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
I'm not
sure, it would
interested.
sell really well.
Yeah, but I'm not.
It's not for you.
That's not
It's
my
not
thing.
for me.
It was to be clear. It was the DC universe went and did what? Like these characters went and created a what? Did nobody bother to stop and think this one through
Right.
Yeah.
before they approved the pitch? Because it is one of those ideas that fundamentally breaks
It's
the
full.
universe.
Yeah.
It's like you literally can break the universe with this if you guys aren't careful.
And we get to have our characters have that exact conversation. That's the dumbest idea.
Yeah. There's literally a moment where when they're laying out the heist and you're watching reactions and two of the characters are like...
They did what?
And I think the description of Leanne's reaction is half of it is, oh my God, how could they be so stupid? And
this is a 16-year-old
Yeah.
talking about a group that includes her dad.
yes, I mean, it's like, okay, clearly they are overreacting to the trauma of this past experience.
Yeah.
So
let's fuck it up for them.
I love the idea of the perfect storm, but also that it's the right time at this point in my career / however you want to say it, experience of life or whatnot, because there's really something I always love to explore, which is like certain books, you read them when you're young or when you're an adolescent, et cetera, et cetera. And I wonder what the Greg and Nicola of like 20 years ago would have said to this project, or how different it would have been.
Yeah.
Like, would it have been radically different? Would you have jumped at it in the same way? Because it's like you are both, like you said, perfect storm. Like you're waiting for something interesting, different.
it wouldn't have been as much fun.
Yeah.
Like the 20-year ago version of this story would have been meaner.
Yeah.
There would be more bodies on the floor.
Yeah. I've often talked about, yes, it was a different time in comics. It's a different time in the world.
Right.
Different time in our lives. I've often sort of talked about us doing Wonder Woman together. And if it had happened at any other time other than when it did, I would have approached the art differently.
Right.
I would have done something, my Diana looks like my Diana in every version that I've done. But sort of tonally, you can influence the tone of a story by how you finish your art. And at the time it was like, we need something a little bit lighter than what I thought we might do together. Because, Greg can write some pretty serious, grim stuff. And in fact,
know.
if I'd been able to sort of work on his first run at Wonder Woman in the early aughts, which is where I kind of discovered Greg and was just like, oh my God, this is the Wonder Woman I've been waiting for. That was kind of when we became aware of each other, and Greg was sort of very generously trying to get me onto the book when I was sort of too green to really be considered for it. But if I'd worked on it then, I would have done something a lot sort of darker and grimmer, because that was the time and it was the story.
That was
and
also
it was
the story.
And it was the time in my life, it was the time in your life. It would have been very different to what we ended up doing in 2016. Because, it's... You just sort of hope you're hitting the zeitgeist at the same time that you're feeling like where you're at is also part of that zeitgeist, rather than in reaction to it, or you're trying to sort of carve out something that isn't organic. That shit can happen very easily. I've worked on jobs where I'm sort of halfway through thinking, this is the wrong time for this book. If this book had been like 2 years ago or 2 years from now, it might be the right time, but it just doesn't feel like the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely don't know if this is the right time
It
for
feels
It
like it.
feels
for
like
this
it.
fun.
Just watching
thing.
you guys
certainly is
talk
for us.
about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
But-
it's the right time.
But I do think, we're all doesn't matter where you are. It really doesn't matter where you are in the world. Everybody's being hit by the fire hose of fascism. Everybody, either you're getting it directly or you're getting the misty spray of the shit.
Yeah, the trickle down of
yes,
it. Yeah.
but everybody's getting it. So I had a brief discussion with somebody on the fan Discord today, talking about, and they were responding to yet another thing in the news, and I was like, dude, you got to sip. You can't put your face in front of the hose.
No.
And you have
blast
to,
your head off.
And you have to step back every so often.
Yes.
And you have to catch your breath, and you have to.
Or you'll drown.
Well, and bearing in mind, it's a tactic, it's a method.
Yes.
Right? The goal is to overwhelm. Because if I can overwhelm and I can terrify and I can discourage, then I have inaction. And then I continue unimpeded. Right? So one of the things that we are obligated to do is to marshal ourselves. And that also means we have to take care of ourselves. And that also means, by extension, we have to be able to turn around and laugh at something.
Yeah.
We have to find joy. We have to be able to hold each other as much as we need to comfort each other and cry. We need to point at stuff and laugh.
I saw something just like yesterday, I'm sure of it, where an older gay gentleman was talking about the 80s AIDS crisis and how in the morning they would get up and go to the funerals, and in the afternoon they would go and volunteer or they would go and protest, and at night they'd go clubbing. Because that sort of coming back to life and having a sense of joy, that's not only what keeps you going and keeps you alive, but it's part of the protest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're still fucking here.
And not stopping.
And we're not stopping.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can't erase us. And
that was it was just sort of really inspiring to go, yeah, that's right. We do all need to continue to be happy because, and find it wherever you fucking find it.
that
you
is
know?
its own, that is
in
its
each
own
other.
protest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is its own, resistance.
So, and so we're going to do a silly book
Yeah.
in the DC universe, and we're going to take these characters and go, you know what? They are pretty awesome. This is why we think these characters are pretty awesome.
They're
And
kind of only incidentally villains, really.
yeah. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll think they're awesome too.
Yeah.
And hopefully by the end of it, you'll think they're so awesome that you want them to get away with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
that
that
you
you're
are rooting for them.
Yeah,
I
they-
think we'll definitely. I'm already
100%.
rooting for them. I'm sold.
That's the trick.
Panel one.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly it. The trick is, if I can get you by the end of issue 3 being like, oh, I am here for this. I want them to pull this off.
I love these characters now.
Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
more.
And I want to know what happens after. I want to follow them.
Yes.
Like I say, the biggest surprise for me, there have been 2 characters that we haven't talked about them, and I kind of want to hold back
sure.
on them. But there are two of them that have totally surprised me how much I am loving them.
Yeah.
And one of them I really, really want to be able to sort of like, go to the editorial team that has oversight of this particular character and be like, can I take this? I'll just be over here doing my
I'll be
thing.
right back.
Don't mind me.
Don't mind me, but this character,
I'm making it better.
horribly misused, completely incidental. I could really do something with this character. Just this one in Cheetah, and I'll just go and do a book.
Yeah.
Just all this shit.
Yes,
That'll be
please.
great. Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
So we'll
please.
see.
Yes, please.
I mean, to see Greg excited like this
No,
is
I know.
pretty exciting.
It's pretty exciting.
For me.
fun.
It's pretty exciting because when you both have done so many characters and everything, it's just so wonderful to see that this kind of energy can still happen. Not that it's all grim and downhill from blah, 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 but when you've done so much, you're like, wow, what haven't you done yet? Kind
Yeah.
of thing. And I think this is the point. It's not about necessarily even what's on the page. It's the energy, it's the collaboration, it's where you're at this point of life, what you need at this point of life, and just having these conversations and laughing and eating together. I mean, this is what it is,
Yeah.
which is like you said.
Nick
Good
brings
line.
energy.
It's the
Nick-
happy. Oh,
Nick
she
brings-
does.
No. I mean,
She does.
and her spouse will quickly point out she really. She's binary. She's either switched on or she's
Pretty
like
much. Yeah.
Powered down.
Yeah, or
I am go
unconscious.
until I hit the floor.
Yeah,
No,
but it is energizing, right? And there is nothing quite as validating in a collaboration when your partner in the collaboration is excited. When you bring them something and they go, oh, I can't wait to do that, and you're
Yeah.
like, all right. Then I sent a script to Lurk this last week and got a note back that was, love it. Totally not what I thought you were going to do with Natasha, this character. Totally not what I thought you were going to do. And that was it. It was 2 sentences. And I was like, phew, okay, I'm on the right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even more than an editor, is your collaborator's your first feedback.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Your
And
first
so
reader.
if I'm putting something in front of Nick and Nick's like, it's like, ooh, I just did her wrong. I took wind out of her sails. What I want to do is I want to pour rocket fuel every time she's
You want
reading
the
a
reaction.
script.
Yeah.
I want her being like, fuck the one I'm writing, I'm drawing now. I want to get to this one.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I can't wait till I'm on this scene. And it's like, then,
And Greg is a
That's the
bunch of
goal.
scripts ahead of me. So I know so much further ahead than I
Right.
would usually.
And that's helpful.
In a series. It's really helpful because it gives me a sense of the bigger sense of the timing and the sort of a bit more sort of information about the nuance of the characters and the dynamics and all that kind of stuff. Any information is always useful. Wherever whatever influence it has on how I draw a scene, where I'm at the beginning, having that extra bit of information, but it's that sort of unique experience of I'm so looking forward to this scene and 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 introducing this character and this scene and this scene and this moment's going to be really fun. And they're all just sort of, they're little vignettes to me that I know I'm getting to. I love that I get to sort of marinate on the concept of them for a while before actually having to sit down and put it on paper. But yes, it is thrilling to sort of be working on a project and just a script will come in and I'll be like, okay, where are we going in this one? What happens in this one? And even though we might have talked about it in some depth and at some length and, we'll talk over dinner about, sometimes it's just Greg talking a problem out loud or a situation out loud.
I do that a lot.
Yeah, but it
do
is
a lot of talking problem.
It's very clarifying to just sort of hear the words out loud, and then you're like, "Oh, I've got it right."
Yeah.
I just needed to say it out loud to someone.
Yeah.
And then sort of getting to read it with the context and all of the sort of the details that are in the script, and just sort of go, "Oh shit, that scene's going to be really cute. Or that scene's going to be really rough. Or that scene's going to like leave the audience with a, ooh, what's this mean? What does this mean?
Yes, a lot of cliffhangers ahead.
Kind of knowing where it's going. You know, the part of the sort of crew building and the whole point of this job for them and for us in the first place was like, it's going to be 6 issues. Where does it end? Like, what's the ending for all of these characters? You know, what's their motivation for doing it in the first place? And finding that for each of these characters, some are quite simple, but others are really kind of a bit of a surprise and a bit complex. And seeing those play out when really all we're telling the readers is the simple version, is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to read those scripts, and I can't wait to draw them, and then I can't wait for them to come out and people read them.
Yes. I'm just seeing it now. All the characters lined up watching the fountain at the end.
Pretty much.
End scene. Yeah. Somehow there'll be a fountain there for them to sit
if they
and
get away
watch.
with it.
If they get away with it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the fun part.
It is the Justice League.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is the thing that you can never forget.
It's a deeply unrealistic
the
possibility.
Justice League.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to pull it off with Batman and 4 Green Lanterns and 1 Flash and a Superman and a Wonder Woman, and we're somehow going to rob a satellite and get away with it. It's like, okay, good luck.
Yeah.
Well,
Knock yourself out, kids.
it's Greg's problem to solve. So.
It sure is.
Yeah.
All right. So when, because I don't even know when we're
August.
dropping this, but when this is August, we're all
Should
looking
be out
for
in August. First
what we
issue
hear.
is in
Ooh.
August. Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
So
it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. And
The dynamic duo's back, stronger than ever.
yeah, I'm the short one.
That's not true.
I'm the short one in this room, but well, super exciting and beyond the comic. It's just been absolutely amazing and lovely to be here in Australia with you both. A little surreal, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
right?
I will treasure it always, the memories. But this has been absolutely fantastic. I feel the energy. You all cannot wait for this book, but just being able to sit and talk to you guys has totally made my trip. So thank you so much. Rucka and Nicola Scott, everybody. Hugs. All right. Anything else to add, to share?
We love you.
Yeah.
Love you guys too.
Yeah.
All
We're
right.
glad we get to talk in person.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a real treat.
This is a real treat. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. August.
Good.
See ya.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to The Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram or Facebook.